In a world that's loud and fast, voices sometimes don't quite last. But here we listen, understand, and grow. So tell us now, do you hear me? Let it flow.
Good morning. I'm your host, Tanya Jones-Lafitte, and I'm here at Do You Hear Me? We're at a space where we could talk about community, mental health, and resources. And I have my co-host,
Lamar Lillard, of course. Good evening. Tonight's discussion is one our listeners deserve about how justice is being carried out and how mental health and equity are being prioritized in our legal system. Without further ado, we got the man of the hour. We're going to bring in Jim Rowe to speak to us about a few matters happening.
Hey, thank you.
all right.
Good morning, sir.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.
It's good to have you.
Good to be here. Good to be here. Thanks for coming and visiting our space.
All right. Well, tell us about Jim Rowe. Who is Jim Rowe?
State Attorney, Kankakee County. I've been in this position now for approximately 9 years. Prior to that, did some municipal law, was a prosecutor up in Cook County, and kind of always had a social work spirit. My undergrad degree was in social work, programming, so that kind of fits well with my current position.
Well, tell us about your current position. What does a state's attorney do?
So, state's attorney is responsible primarily for prosecuting all crimes throughout the county. That's everything from a speeding ticket to a burglary, a robbery, criminal damage to property, all the way up to some of the most heinous crimes like murder, sexual assault. And I supervise an office of about 18 prosecutors. I think we have maybe 15, 16 support staff throughout the office, and then a huge community division that we started a few years ago.
Okay, you got some things that you've done with mental health. What are some of the initiatives that you've done?
So our office was part of a group that decided, first and foremost, we need a mental health court. A lot of people, when they enter the system, you don't enter the criminal justice system because you want to commit crime. Many people enter it for reasons of addiction and mental health. And if you just have that revolving door where you prosecute them, punish them, and send them back out into the community, you never really get to the root cause of why they're committing the crime.
Right.
So the better public safety outcome is if you can help someone, if it's mental health, help them get counseling, help them get therapy, maybe access to meds, med monitoring. And if you can get them back on that right path, you won't see them re-enter the system, which means they're not committing additional crimes. Same thing with our drug court, with our veterans court. So that was a big push. We're about a year into that mental health court. It's already starting to show some successes. I think we have our first graduate coming up here pretty soon. And we're also trying to make mental health resources, grief counseling, counseling for survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, all the things that can really contribute to someone's mental health. We're trying to make those services more accessible throughout the county.
So with that being said, first-time offenders with mental health, how does that relate to their sentencing? So when they're sentenced, do you automatically refer them to mental health, or how does that work?
So every case is different.
Okay.
But mental health court is really for a first-time offender. It could be a 10th time offender.
Okay.
Because, in the past, maybe they went through the system without that proper intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're realizing this person is suffering from a mental health crisis, and it's better to get them help than prosecute them. Most people who enter mental health come in what they call pre-conviction. So you've been charged with a crime, you get a mental health evaluation, we determine that you're eligible for mental health court, and if you successfully complete mental health court, that charge may ultimately be dismissed.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
It's an opportunity to not tag someone with a conviction that can impact them for the rest of their life, when what's driving their behavior is really something outside of their control.
Yes, we know that people are diagnosed but not diagnosed.
Right.
So when you're diagnosed, you have a reason for, and not saying we're given a reason for crime, but we're given an understanding on why things happen. I get that.
And they're provided with pretty much wraparound services.
Okay.
From the moment they come into mental health court, they've got people that are helping them access those resources, access mental health counseling, can get them to their appointments. They check in weekly at the mental health court. So it's a pretty rigorous program.
Okay.
You've really got to be committed to maintaining either your sobriety if you're in drug court or your mental health treatment if you're in mental health court. But it's definitely a path forward.
Okay.
Well, what else can we do to ensure that the community feels cared for and protected? There's a thin line, as far as the community is concerned, there's a thin line between, protection and, maybe people stepping over the line by law enforcement. It's what the community. Sure. Yeah, can you explain that?
I think the community relations is really the biggest component. When people in the community know who their law enforcement officers are and are able to build that rapport, and when law enforcement knows the people in the community, right? Because this is a two-way street here. When those relationships are built, you have greater chance of achieving public safety and having positive relationships between law enforcement and the community. The other thing is, we run into this a lot. A crime occurs, sometimes a very violent crime, and people are hesitant to come forward. They don't want to report what they saw. They don't want to be a witness in court. I can understand that. I've been subpoenaed to court in the past. Even me, who goes into court every day, it's nerve-wracking when you have to get up on the stand.
Yes.
The reality is, though, we have to commit to doing that as a community, and as a community, we have to protect the people who do come forward, because we've had some very violent crimes throughout our county. We've had some right here in Pembroke Township.
Yes.
And they have gone unsolved. We may know who committed the crime, but knowing who did it and being able to prove it in court are two widely different things. I always challenge people, you've never seen an episode of Law and Order where they did a trial with no witnesses.
That is
You
true.
can't even prosecute people on TV
Yes.
without a witness.
Yes.
I know, it takes a lot of courage, and people are hesitant to do that, but as a community, we've got to start celebrating those who come forward, and really eliminate that snitch label. That snitch label gets in the way of justice and safety in our community more really than anything else.
Yes, especially in the Black community, that's what you hear. Snitches get stitches.
Yeah.
So, right, that's one of the things, like you just said. If the police don't know or don't have the tools or resources, then they can't solve the crime. And if you're sitting there knowing who did it and not giving the information to the police, you're part of the crime. You're part of the problem.
I've never had someone come to me and give me information and tell me that they won't share it with the police because they're afraid of the police or because they don't have a relationship with the police. I think that's a false narrative we've created.
Mm-hmm.
People say, well, no one will come forward because they're afraid of the police. I've never heard that. What people tell me is they don't want to be labeled as a snitch in the neighborhood. So that snitch mentality and this idea that people who cooperate with law enforcement to solve a murder are somehow doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That narrative has to change.
I remember meeting you there for the first time at one of the township meetings, and we were standing there. We was critiquing the meeting. But the second time I remember is, and you could tell us the story. You could set it up. You were climbing through a window. Tell us about that.
One of the only state's attorneys that ever did that.
Climbed through a window.
Don't try that home.
Probably for good reason.
Yes.
Don't try that home.
That was that probably wasn't my best moment.
Right.
But I got a call from a law enforcement officer. There was a young man who committed a pretty serious crime, was hiding in a home. There were some people in the house. He didn't know. He had broken into that home. And they asked me if I could come out. And to their credit, all they asked me to do was come out and see if I could talk to him.
Right.
And I knew him for probably about 10 years at that point. I knew his mom for about a decade. And when I got there, there was a lot of law enforcement on scene, which was understandable because he was armed and had big shots on him before he went into that home. I did a little bit more than talk to him, but I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I didn't want the family members in the home to get hurt. I didn't want the kid to get hurt. I didn't want law enforcement to get hurt. So he would open the window so I could talk to him. I saw an opportunity and took it. And thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God it worked out because
Yeah.
it was a really bad decision I made. But in the end, nobody got hurt, and he was taken into custody. He was held accountable for what he did.
Okay.
And nobody was injured.
And you rode to the police station in the back of the car with him.
I did.
Wow.
Well, that shows a person that's involved in their community,
Yeah.
and it shows compassion. And as a state's attorney, I can't even imagine being in that situation where you put your life in jeopardy, because it could have went different.
You know, I didn't feel like that. I knew him. I knew his mom. I didn't feel like there was any chance of him doing anything to me. In fact, what a lot of people don't know is that window was a little bit higher than I thought it was. So when I tried to get through the window, I was struggling a little bit. And when I fell through the window, I face planted right on the floor.
Ouch.
And as I stood up and was dusting myself off, the first thing the young man said was, "Are you okay?" He was making sure I was okay. So I foolishly maybe, but I really didn't have any concerns like that.
Now, would you do something like that again?
Probably 100 times over. Yeah, that's just it's just part of my heart.
You feel like you
to
saved
see
his
people in
life
that
that day?
situation. No, I can't say that. God was protecting me. God was protecting him and everybody there. All I did was go through a window.
So if you wrote a book, that definitely is a story that you have to
That would
read.
not be in the book.
You would put that
That would not be in the book.
Why?
No, definitely not one of my better moments.
No.
It was something I absolutely should not have done.
Okay.
It's totally outside of protocol.
Okay.
It was, again, just not the best decision I've ever made. But it's like
So you held
good
yourself
bad decision.
Yeah, he gained a lot of supporters and people who didn't really know him like that. They heard about that story and they were in awe of that. Even me, I was like, these guys know.
You were talking to the wrong people.
So
Not everybody was in awe of that.
I know
Well-
state's attorneys don't normally do things like that.
Well,
so I'm
the-
like, he went above and beyond.
So are you saying the street committee was in awe of him?
Yeah.
Because when I saw it, it was Facebook Live.
Yeah.
I can
So-
see that.
It was
Worst thing
Facebook.
that's ever been on Facebook, in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah.
So.
And it was during COVID. COVID had just, I think it was in March
Mhm.
March or April of 2020. So COVID had just started. We weren't even supposed to be outside.
Yeah.
And there was hundreds of people outside.
It really
that
was.
scene. Yeah,
It really was.
yeah. Poor city.
So I know Lamar has some questions about your facility here.
Yeah, how do you ensure that the underserved are getting, this basically is what you set this building up for, so the underserved. Can you tell us a little bit about why you set the building up and some of the services that's on?
Sure. So,
And if you want, we can bring in Paul as well, too. You want her?
yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
There's a huge gap in services throughout our community, where we know people need a service, but access to that service, there can be barriers to it. It can be transportation, it can be cost, it can be scheduling conflicts. So the idea was to open up our community division, primarily in our office. We're the only state's attorney's office, I think, in the state, maybe the country, with a community division. And the goal of that division is to help people. No matter what you need, no matter what the resources that you need access to, you can come to our office and we will help you access that resource. We'll hold your hand through that government red tape and make sure you get the help you need.
Yeah.
But those barriers can still get in the way of even accessing that initial doorstep, right, of getting into our office. Not everyone wants to come out to the courthouse, go up to the third floor, go through security to get help. So going into the community is really what we wanted to do, and that's why we opened this space here in Hopkins Park.
Okay. We're gonna get, what's Paula's title?
Paula Stampley, she
I am Paula Stanley.
she manages our community office here in Hopkins Park.
All right, well, nice meeting you. Hello, Jim.
Hello, how are you?
Good. All right,
It's
Tanya.
always nice to see you. Yes,
You
yes.
didn't know you were coming here today?
Well, no, I did not.
So we got Paula in, and Paula's gonna let us know some of the services that are available here at the satellite office. And And let Jim, maybe you can introduce you.
I am Paula Stampley. I'm the site manager here at the satellite office for the Attorney Jim Rowe. Some of the services we offer here are TRIO. It's an educational service. We offer, Dwayne Dean comes here. That's a methadone service that we offer. There's Illinois, who else is here? We have Birth to Five that come in. We have Air Course Mental Health Services that come in.
Get Harbor House.
Harbor House.
Domestic violence counseling.
Yeah, so they all come in once a week, once a month they will come in. Right now, those services are on call
Okay.
because sometimes the community is not very receptive to coming in. So those services are still available here at our office, but on a call.
We work with Clove. They do sexual assault counseling for survivors of sexual assault. We do expungement and sealing clinics so people can get something off their background so they can move on with their life, get housing, education, awards, employment. We've had job placement assistance. We've got computers. They can come and work on a resume, apply for jobs online. You can even come out here and do online courses for college.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we're just trying to make sure that if there is a need in the community, people know they can come here, either receive the resource or we'll help you access it elsewhere.
So what are some of the challenges that you see with having this here? Is the community using it, or are they?
I think sometimes a lot of hesitation is just that Jim is not the police, but sometimes they associate his office with the police, and sometimes that's a hesitation with the people coming into this office. But what I try to convey to people is that that's not the such. You know, Jim is here to help our community, especially with the expungement program that he offers. You know, that's a way for some of us to be able to clean up our backgrounds, to be able to get jobs.
We're not interviewing witnesses here. We're not looking for people to come in and tell us what they saw. This is a place where you can come. It's a safe space.
Exactly.
You can come in here, get access to resources, get help, and we hope that the community will start accessing that.
Exactly.
Tell us a little bit about the expungement. How does that work?
Sure. So, for the most part, once someone has been convicted of a crime, whether a felony or a misdemeanor, in the past, that was on your record forever.
Okay.
Very few exceptions when you could expunge or seal something. Maybe about 8-9 years ago, the law changed and it expanded that opportunity. And we jumped on that. I understand that when someone is able to work, when they're able to get housing, when they're able to go back to school, that produces better outcomes for them, for their family, for their children, and for public safety. So you want to invest in things that improve public safety.
Yes.
So if someone has been convicted of a crime in their past, the standard procedure is they have to wait 3 years from the completion of their sentence. And the sentence involves a period of probation or parole. So once you are off probation, you're off parole, you're out of the system, you don't have any cases pending. So let's say 3 years clean, we'll call it. 3 years out of the system, you're then eligible to come in and seal or expunge that conviction.
Okay.
Expungement means it's gone forever. Nobody can see it ever again. Police, prosecutors, courts. That's limited. It's limited to cases where maybe you got a court supervision, or you did a treatment court or a second chance probation where the conviction wasn't entered, or if it's a class 3 or lower marijuana possession case. Sealing means that your record is sealed. So cops, courts, corrections, in other words, if you get in trouble again, we can still see that sealed record,
Okay.
but private employers can't. So you can apply for jobs in the community and mark that no box on the application, and when they run your background, anything that's been sealed won't be visible to them. Now, not every crime can be sealed or expunged.
Okay.
Convictions for domestic battery, sexual assault, any traffic violations, DUIs, or animal cruelty, I believe that's the list. Those convictions, the law does not allow them to get relief. So no sealing, no expungement. But everything else, we have had people come through our program who have previously committed violent crimes, armed robberies, and they're still able to get that sealing relief if they meet all the criteria.
Oh, okay, so there is still a chance.
Yes.
Wow, I don't know.
And we hear a lot of the success stories. We've had a few of our sealing and expungement clinics here.
Yes.
We've had people come in who 20 years ago got convicted for possession of marijuana in an amount that today would be legal.
Okay.
But that has hindered them from job opportunities their whole life. And they come in, they get that relief, and they're able to get back into the workforce.
You are correct, because I was reading a newspaper article from Pembroke about young men that, and I believe when I ran for office, I used this scenario, where these young men was over in Indiana, had picked marijuana back in the day when we, and they got these convictions for marijuana, but today it's legal, but at the end of the day, our young black men had records when they should probably never had records. So,
And here's the opportunity to come in and get that off your background.
yes,
But people are hesitant to do that because of their past experiences with the system, maybe even past experiences with the prosecutor's office, let's be honest.
so here's your chance. If you have anything on your record and you don't understand it, please come see Ms. Paula at the State's Attorney Office here in Pembroke, and she will walk you through it.
Sure will. I'm here Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And because, some of the services are on hold, we offer different things. Like right now, I have someone on the computer from the community. So the computers are here for the community to use as well. And pretty soon, I will be offering notary services here.
Very good.
Oh, great.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Now,
And all of our services are free. I think
All
it's
of the
important.
services are free.
Even with our sealing and expungement program, the court fees are waived. Judge Elliott has been a great partner with us in that process. So from the preparation of the paperwork until you get that petition granted, there's absolutely no cost involved in
Free. Free, capital.
Free.
Yeah.
now,
So-
go ahead.
That safety act, can you tell me about that safety act and how it affected, your office or your supervision?
I'm not a big fan of the Safety Act, in case you didn't know. Look, I do not believe in a cash bond system. I think it's inherently unfair. Let's say you and I get arrested for the same exact crime, same exact facts. Okay, we have the same exact background. You have the money to bond out, and I don't. Now I'm sitting fighting the case from inside, and you're out in the community. Big, different leverage there, for sure.
Yeah.
Poverty or wealth should not determine whether you are incarcerated or not.
That's
Right.
But if you want to fix that system, you can't fix it with a system that allows violent criminals to go right back out in the community. So what they did under the Safety Act, they eliminated cash bail. Okay. But then they decided this one category of offenses are detainable, meaning when you're charged with this crime, you could have the potential to be held in custody pending trial. And then there's this huge number of offenses that not the court, not the prosecutor, nobody has the discretion to detain you for a pending trial. Now, I'll give you some of the worst examples. Someone who solicits sex with a child under Illinois law cannot be detained. So they commit that crime, they're charged with that crime in court, and they're immediately released back out in the community. I can't even ask the court to detain that person, and the judge can't grant it. Failing to register as a sex offender, the same thing. So they fail to register, they're immediately released. They continue not to register, you can charge them and arrest them again, they're immediately released. And it allows people, retail theft is not a violent crime.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But if you have someone who is now on their 10th pending retail theft crime, that's really unfair to the community, it's unfair to the storekeeper,
Yes.
that this person is able to get through that system. So, the criminal justice system has long been called a revolving door. I just don't want to be the guy that spins it.
Right.
That's true.
And the Safety Act has put us in that position. So I think that the intention behind the act to eliminate poverty as a hindrance or wealth as a benefit in the criminal justice system, absolutely. But to replace it with a system that allows dangerous, violent people to go right back out into the neighborhood is terrifying. And we're seeing that. We're seeing it play out pretty much every day in our courthouse.
Okay, so when the community is saying the police isn't doing anything, it's not that they're not doing their job. They can't do their job per se.
There are crimes of criminal trespassing. So Tanya, someone comes to your house and they're standing on your front lawn, and they're yelling at your house, like they're yelling something, threatening you. When the police arrive at that scene, they can't arrest that person. They have to issue him a ticket with a court date, and he leaves. If he comes back onto the property, they can go out there, now they can arrest him. But what we've created now is a system where that person has to commit the crime twice. You have to be a victim 2 times before the person can even be arrested. And then when they're arrested, they're released within 24 to 48 hours because we can't detain them for that. Someone points a gun at you and threatens to shoot you. That's an aggravated assault in Illinois, non-detainable offense. So they can be arrested for that, but we can't hold them beyond 24 to 48 hours. That's scary.
That is scary.
Yeah, that's not public safety. It's the opposite of it. So you fixed one problem, but you've created 100 more.
So how does that work with restraining orders? I mean, you have women that have a restraining order against their spouse for whatever reason. How does that work?
So if someone violates an order of protection, that is an arrestable offense and a detainable offense.
Okay.
So that's a case where we could file a petition with the court and say, Judge, this person poses a threat to this other individual who has an order of protection, and the court then makes a call whether they detain them or not.
Okay, so there is some protection for it.
But I know that it's just the way things go. Not everyone's going to take the time to read a 700-page safety act. I understand that.
Right.
I didn't want to do it either. But what happens is the perception is the police aren't doing anything, the state's attorney's not doing anything, the judges aren't doing anything. I get calls all the time. Why did you let this person out? Well, I don't have the keys to the jail. And the sheriff can't keep someone in when the law says he can't. So the real issue here is the law that was passed by legislators in Springfield a couple years ago in 2023, I believe. And now we're starting to see the impact of it. But people need to understand this is not me or the police or the judges not wanting to protect our community. We're fighting with one hand tied behind our back because of this law. And the blame needs to be put where it belongs. It's on state legislators who voted for this bill and the governor who signed it, quite frankly. And we fought it. We fought it all the way up to the Illinois Supreme Court. Ultimately, the Supreme Court said the legislature, has the ability to pass bad laws if they want to.
So with that being said, as you know, Pembroke does not have its own police force.
Correct.
We use the county sheriff. What can we do as a community to ensure safety?
The biggest thing, it really goes back to that people not wanting to be a snitch or be the witness or the one that reported it. Sheriff's Department, and we have these conversations often, between my office, between Sheriff Downey, Under Sheriff Gessner. When they get calls for service in Pembroke Township, they respond. So let's say I'm at home, someone is shooting outside, and I call 911, but I don't want to give my name.
Right.
And they always say, do you want an officer to meet with you? I don't want to meet with the officer, right? Because I don't want him coming to my house, maybe, or I don't want anyone to know that I'm the one that's calling. So the police arrive on the scene. If they don't actively see the person shooting or possessing the gun, you can't do anything because you don't have a witness.
I'm gonna hold this.
Excuse me.
Ms. Paula has
Yes.
to go. Thank
Yes,
you
I
for
do.
joining us.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you all
you.
for
Thank
inviting
you.
me here.
Yes. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. So that level of cooperation, it just has to improve. Because you've got to have a witness to say, I saw that individual firing that firearm. Without that, if the police don't observe it themselves, there's not much they can do. Because there's nothing I can bring into court and point to, or a witness who will testify this person committed the crime. And nobody would want me to be able to bring people into court and convict you without evidence. I wouldn't want to live in a community like that.
Right.
Because then we can all be convicted of anything.
Because
So
I
that's
know
a challenge.
that's one of the problems that we hear in Pembroke is the trespassing on property, the gun shooting.
Yes.
I've had to call the police myself because, some of the gun,
Yeah.
seems like they're shooting something other than a rifle,
And that the trespassing issue, you have to remember, in order to be trespassing, the person who owns the property has to say you're the trespasser.
Okay.
I can't call the police because someone's in your front yard. And I can't sign a complaint because they're in your front yard. That's your front yard. You
Right,
have to do that.
right.
So when you talk about the sand dunes, for
Okay.
instance, okay, the entity that owns that property, they can post no trespassing signs, they can tell people you can't be on this property. The police can catch someone on that property. But that entity needs to sign that complaint. That entity needs to say, this person is trespassing. Because when I go into court, one of the things I have to prove is that they didn't have permission to be there.
Okay.
The signs aren't enough, because they can allow people to go in there, right? So I need a witness to get on the stand and say, that person didn't have permission to be on my property, and then the officer can get on the stand and say that person was on that property. But you need both sides of that. And without the owners of that property signing those complaints, those cases can never get to the inside of the court.
Wow, thanks for clearing that up, because I didn't understand that.
And remember, trespassing, even if they catch them on the property, not arrestable, not detainable.
Wow, okay. Another thing that I noticed is prominent in the community is the opioid addiction. What can we do is there any services out there for that?
There are. Our coroner, Gessner, has done an amazing job of making sure Narcan has been distributed throughout Kankakee County, and he deserves so much credit. You're going back 14, 15 years. He started to see those cases coming into his morgue where people died of heroin. At the time, heroin was really driving it back then. And then fentanyl was added to the equation. Before it was even a law in the state of Illinois, he went and acquired ample Narcan to give out to all of our law enforcement officers, give out in the community. So that man alone, Bob Gessner, is responsible for saving probably hundreds of lives, if not thousands by this time. There are resources in the community where people can get help. They can go into the hospitals, they can go into Duane Dean. Duane Dean is even able to get you resources outside of our community if you need, for instance, inpatient.
Okay.
There's counseling, treatment. If someone is in the system and they have a drug addiction problem, they can always get into drug court as well, where there's a lot of resources. But that is eliminating. I've read something recently that's a leading cause of death among overdose deaths from opioid epidemic. It's a leading cause of death. More people in certain age groups are dying from overdoses than even car crashes. So just the magnitude of the impact that's having on our communities and really our country is pretty bad. And Kankakee County, a couple of years ago, even the president mentioned our specific county. We had a higher per capita death rate than any other community in the United States. That number has gone down drastically because of the resources everyone is committed to it, but it's still a major problem.
So what is the youngest death of overdose that your office has?
We've had babies in the womb die because the mother overdosed. So, zero. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just sad.
And we've had up into their 80s for a long period of time. I don't know the exact number right now, but the average age of an overdose, what would you guess it would be in our county?
45?
Yeah, you think 19, you think the younger demographic, right? Time's right. It was like 42, 44. And when you have someone who's literally 0 years old, still in the womb, and you're averaging that against the higher ages, right? That's how you end up in the middle. So it just goes to show you, it's every generation is being impacted by this drug epidemic and by the overdose. Yeah, sad.
So your office, they're able to come in and get some services?
We will connect them with services. The main thing I want people to know, our community division was created to help people with any kind of needs they have. Anything from, you need help getting addiction services, you need help getting a driver's license, a social security card, you're struggling to get state benefits, anything you can think of. We want you to come to the state's attorney's office. Whether you come to the courthouse, you come to our Pembroke site, our Kankakee site, we're about to open one in Aroma Park soon. You can walk in these doors and share your concerns or problems with us. We're going to do everything in our power to provide you with the resource or to connect you with the agencies and the people who can get it for you. And Paula does a great job of that here in Hoskins Park. And I really want to encourage people, if you have needs, if you're struggling, this is a safe place you can come and get help. Don't forego grief counseling, sexual assault, domestic violence counseling, because you're hesitant to walk in these doors.
Absolutely.
Come and get the help. It's not only helping you, it's helping all your loved ones and your family members when you get help too.
My last question would be, what is your role in your elected officials investigating wrongdoings or illegal activities? What can we do, or what does your office do?
So the state's attorney's office is not an investigative body.
Okay.
We don't have police officers or investigators that can go out and look into crime.
Mhm.
Government, public corruption is handled the same way that your standard violent crimes are. Someone reports what they believe to be theft of public funds or whatever the allegation is, you report it to a law enforcement agency. That could be the Illinois State Police, your county sheriff's department, local police department, even the feds.
Okay.
Those law enforcement agencies investigate the allegations, look into it, and then once they have all the evidence and they believe a crime is committed, whether that's corruption or a robbery, a murder, a retail theft, all across, it's the same process. When they believe there's probable cause to believe a crime was committed, they then send those reports to the state's attorney's office. We review them and make a charging decision. So we're not able to go in and look through the books and investigate. That's simply not our role under the law.
Okay.
That's for the law enforcement to do. We handle the courtroom side of that.
What's your message to like the youth and community members who want to see change?
Drive that change. You know, everyone has within them the ability to improve their community. It could be from volunteering in a local cleanup effort, going on one of the bike rides with law enforcement officers, or you can change the community sometimes by changing your own behaviors and your own decision making. That's a big part of it too.
Yes.
You know, we all can decide what kind of surrounding we're in by how we the decisions we make ourselves. So that self-accountability is so crucial. And then don't think that anything's out of reach. You know, I got a lot of trouble as a kid. I probably would have been voted most likely to be in a courthouse, but not in this role.
Right.
But I had a mentor come into my life. I had a very strong mom in my life, and it made all the difference for me. So if you don't have those people in your life, go out and find a mentor. You know, connect yourself with someone who's going to tell you, don't go that way, go this way. And latch yourself to them, to good, positive people. Separate yourself from people that are bringing you down the wrong path. Make better decisions, and just by doing that within yourself, you're going to change your community.
Is there anything else you want us to know, or the community to know?
Start taking advantage of the resources out here. Paula is an amazing individual. She's local. She knows the neighborhood. She knows the families. Come out here and get the help you need. And if you don't need help, God bless you. Come out here and volunteer to help people who do.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank
It was
you.
great to be here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, community, you heard it. We have all these resources here in the community. Please come out, use them. As you know, Jim is one of us. I call him my little baby brother. So, well, thank you for joining us. I'm Tanya at Do You Hear Me?
And I'm Lamar Lillard.